What up? It's your boy Dick Incredible Man, and yes, I am back at it again. And this is Lucifer Season 5, Part 1, Episode 7. And I'm gonna be 100% honest. I I'm not even upset at Dan. Let's get into it, man. Now, this episode ended on such a gut-wrenching cliffhanger. But like I said in my opening, I don't blame Dan. We know what happened to Dan. We see that this episode, Dan ends up feeling some type of way from seeing Lucifer's real devil face, and he's tormented and he's afraid of going to hell. So he went to talk to Charlotte, and he's having a hard time. And while Dan is vulnerable, because he's afraid of going to hell and not seeing Charlotte, and he's scared for Trixie and Chloe, and he's having a hard time. And in that hard time, Michael comes up and uses Dan's emotional state for his own gain. And at the end of the episode, it pays off, and Dan ends up shooting Lucifer. But I don't blame Dan. I'm furious and upset at Dan, but I don't blame him because we know Michael is playing with his mind. And it's so sad, man, because this season Dan became a member of the cast to me. I told you guys that in previous reviews. Dan, I felt like Dan finally became a member of the cast in episode 5. He's been connecting with everybody. This was Dan's season, his and Maze's season, and it felt like they kind of undid all of that work in this episode. But I want to see how episode 8 plays out. But I don't blame Dan. It's all Michael's fault. Let's just put that there and put a pin in it for now. It was a very nice and wonderful episode. Like I said, we only saw Dan for that brief moment, and then he popped up at the end. But the rest of the episode, we are dealing with Lucifer losing his mojo. Now, I love the fact that we woke up and we started this episode. We see Lucifer and Chloe waking up, and they're in bed together having such a wonderful time. They get to their first case and they're all lovey-dovey. It was fantastic. But I love how season 5 is handling everything, because while we have these cases that is very serious cases, because this episode we're dealing with a serial killer. But while we're dealing with these cases always end up tying into everything that's taking place with Lucifer and Chloe. And I really love that fact because it gives them such an open dynamic. And I love the fact that how it shows how progressive their relationship is and how it's advancing. But at the same time, when we get these moments like Lucifer feeling a little inadequate because he doesn't have his powers anymore, and Chloe kind of has them, kind of doesn't, because it's not working when she's using it on other people. It's only working when she's using it on Lucifer. So I'm not really sure how is that working. Maybe it's one of those things like how he's only vulnerable around Chloe. So maybe that's how it kind of ties in with to her using the mojo, I'm assuming. But at the end of the episode, their relationship is kind of like resolved a little bit, but we see throughout the episode Lucifer kind of playing in on it. It was like, well, since you have my mojo, I'm gonna walk around with a gun and a badge. And long story short, it kind of came into play with Lucifer toting around this gun, because we catch the serial killer pretty much red-handed, and he gets the drop on Lucifer. And as you all know, with Chloe around, Lucifer is always vulnerable, and the dude hits him with the paralytic, and Lucifer goes down for the count. But Chloe comes in, and Lucifer has the gun on him, and she ends up shooting the serial killer. Now, I love that because dealing with the resolution of the episode, Lucifer was dealing with a lot of stuff going throughout the episode. He was feeling inadequate, feeling like he really didn't have any need to be around anymore because Chloe didn't need him. She had the mojo. She can solve cases on her own. But throughout this episode, we see Ella and her new boyfriend kind of having such a wonderful thing, kind of sharing together. And that's great to see Ella in that light. I love Ella being happy and cheery. She's not hurting. She's not really going through anything anymore right now. She's happy and she's fun, and I'm loving this Ella. But Lucifer ends up seeing that her and I think his name is Pete having such a wonderful open relationship about them sharing things together. And Lucifer realizes, well, you know what? I can share things with Chloe. And I love that because at the end of the episode, it's resolved. But we see Lucifer struggling throughout the episode. And when the case is resolved, they're that part of their relationship is resolved as well. But I love seeing him and Chloe inside of counseling with Linda. It was fun. There was some nice funny moments throughout the episode. But before I talk about everything else, I have to say, the case about the serial killer, something is amiss with me. So I feel like something's off. Something's not really matching. And I feel like Pete knew where everything was inside the little dark room. So I feel like Pete may be involved. I don't know. I could be wrong. But I feel like Pete is involved. I have to watch episode 8 to find out. But Maze and Amenadiel. We see Maze and Amenadiel kind of both going through some things this episode, and Maze is kind of like reverting back to when she kind of had feelings for Amenadiel, and she's only doing this because she's hurt about her mother, and she realizes that that's not what she wanted. It's not really bringing her any kind of pain. I mean, not really bringing her any kind of joy. She doesn't feel anything, and she's so upset about not having a soul and her mother. Maze is going through a lot, and like I said, I love Maze this season because we're seeing such a very different side of Maze. And the funny thing is because while they're having that whole moment, we see Amenadiel dealing with the fact of, well, he doesn't really know what to do when Dan cancels on their hangout day, and he's stuck at the house, and him and Maze ended up, doing what they were doing. And Amenadiel realizes that's not what he wanted either. He wanted to just spend more time with Charlie. And it was a nice realization for our characters this episode. Maze finally got some realization while her and Amenadiel were talking at Lux, that, hey, Maze, you're going to find somebody. And, if anybody can do it, she can do it, because Maze has been through so much and so much as a character that she's progressing so wonderfully. And I feel like season 5, we got to see such a very different side of Maze, and it's such a wonderful side. Amenadiel, like I said, he resolved his things pretty much on his own about dealing with Charlie, and he just wants to be a dad. He wants to stay around Charlie and just be involved in Charlie's life. And when Linda told him that, hey, well, if we do our jobs right, Charlie may not need us anymore, because eventually Charlie's going to grow up. And Amenadiel had this look on his face. It was like, well, I don't know. I still want to be involved in his life. And you can be, but as he grows, he doesn't really, he really isn't going to depend on you that much. But I get where Amenadiel is coming from as well. And then we end with the ending of the episode, man. And Dan shoots Lucifer. Like I said, I'm not upset at Dan. Well, I mean, I'm upset with Dan, but I don't blame Dan. This is all Michael's fault. But we have some Star Trek in there. We have the Shining reference. We have Ella and her boyfriend speaking Klingon. So we had some nice extras thrown inside the episode as well that I really enjoyed. But overall, it was more heavily tied toward Lucifer and Chloe this episode. Everything else it didn't feel extra, but it felt like it kind of got put on the back burner a little bit, because we was really heavily focusing on Lucifer and Chloe. And I love how Pete and Ella's relationship tied into Chloe and Lucifer's relationship, and the case kind of tied into the relationship, and that's been a trend in season 5, and I'm actually really enjoying it. Now I gotta go check out episode 8, because I just don't know, man, because I got to see how this is playing out, because Dan losing his mind and Michael is taking advantage of it. This is really incredible, man. Don't forget to smash the like button till you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping, I'm nasty. Ain't nobody able to catch me, they gasping. They cannot compare, they can't match me, I'm at half speed.